Hey guys, welcome. Hope you're all doing well tonight. If you can hear me fine, please let me know in the comment section. I would greatly appreciate it. All right, I've got several topics tonight to talk to you guys about. So I'm hoping that you're hearing me fine. I'm not getting any feedback in my headphones, so maybe I need to figure something out or take them off. Can you hear me okay? Can you guys let me know if you can hear me, please? Sorry, guys, trying out some new things tonight, like the countdown starter sequence, things like that. Some of the other tools that are available through the streaming software that I use called StreamYard. Seems to be a pretty good service. It allows you to do things like this, where you can do several camera angles as you're doing your videos, so your viewers aren't looking at the same old thing the whole time that the live stream is going. All right. So I think it probably goes without saying that for many of us, our hearts and our prayers go out to the people in Turkey and Syria. Pretty bad earthquake, and I haven't heard the quote unquote recent numbers, but it seems as though like 3,000 people are feared to be dead or something like that. I don't know if that number's gone up or gone down, but and Paul Metal Paratrooper says, cool countdown, Fletch. Hey, thank you. I appreciate that. All right. Give it just a few more seconds here. Allow a couple other people to join in. I guess the Biden State of the Union address is going on right now too. So if I would have known that, I probably wouldn't have scheduled it at that time, because while I don't care to watch it live, I care what the president of our country has to say. So I'll probably watch it on the replay anyways. But that's what replay is for, right? All right, so let's go ahead and get into it, especially for those who are watching on the replay. Thank you for watching it on the replay. I appreciate you. Even if you can't be here live, thank you for supporting the channel. All right, so a couple of things that I wanted to talk about tonight, and if there's not a lot, because first off, I apologize that we missed our regular Sunday time, and the reason why is because we had to get the tree off of the garage, and had been anyways, a cold week previous to that. So then we need to get the back brakes done on our truck too, because we couldn't drive it. The brake pads were worn down. And so anyways, we got that taken care of. And so we're back. I think the next video that I probably have coming out is part 2 of the Harbor Freight 29-gallon air compressor. And so you guys will have to watch it to see what happened. If you watch the end of part one, I put a couple sneak peek pictures in there you can go in and take a look at to get an idea of what ended up happening. And my son and I the other day did a couple mods to it, kind of make life easier as well. So if you have one of those compressors, or if you're thinking about getting a compressor like that, I'll show you how to do a couple of mods on that you might appreciate as well. Excuse me. But other than that, let's go ahead and get into the show for tonight. Let's see. A couple of things I wanted to talk about first was kind of just more of a, state of the way things are, right? Something along those lines. And the new movie that is on uh, Prime Video, Prime Video through Amazon. There was a new movie on there called Shotgun Wedding, and I had read a couple of good reviews on it. So, and I like comedies, and so I thought, well, I'll try it a little bit and see what it's like, see what it's about. And guys, let me tell you, it's just straight trash. it's straight trash. It is supposed to be a comedy, but the man in the movie, the guy that J-Lo is getting married to, and I don't know the guy's name. I didn't recognize him by his face or his name, but admittedly, I'm not very adept into modern culture, shall we say. So, anyways, the dude was an imbecile. And, all of the humor was at his expense because, he couldn't do anything right. And unfortunately, that's a sign of the times that we're living in, right? The system, whatever that is, however that works, right? They're going to take every opportunity they can to emasculate men, to make them look weak, to make them look foolish. And, just thank goodness, that they've got a strong, capable wife that continuously rescues them. And, but to kind of finish the thought and to parlay, the same frame of mind or same thought is just simply that I've been doing some time looking at Chat GPT, and while doing that, it's very evident to me that the Chat GPT was programmed by woke AF Adam Foxtrot, woke AF programmers. If you ask Chat GPT to tell you a joke about a woman, it won't. It'll be like, oh, we can't be talking about women that way, but it'll sure as hell tell you a joke about a dude. And so again, in my opinion, that's very fitting of the situation that we continually find ourselves in nowadays in our current society, right? If you look at the sitcoms that are on, just regular TV, and then the rom-coms, romantic comedies, the rom-coms and stuff like that. And, the dude's always some bumbling buffoon, and, he's just lucky that he has a good, strong, capable wife that ends up saving him on a regular basis. And so, it's really one of those things. It's just like, man, are you kidding me? And so anyways, I only watched about maybe 5 minutes of that new J-Lo movie. I think it's called Shotgun Wedding. And so there you go. I can't tell you anything more about the movie because I didn't watch any more than 5 minutes of it. I got my fill in 5 minutes. That's all I could take. All right. So a couple other things in addition to just regular poignant things that are happening. Um, the blimp balloon, whatever it was, supposedly from China. Um, I guess we'll probably Biden will probably lie about it tonight on TV and give us the official version uh, of that, and how that all supposedly happened or didn't happen, as the case may be. But yeah, that'll be interesting to see. What are you guys' thoughts about the balloon? Do you think that think they should have shut it down right away, or do you think that it was better to let it float all the way across the country so they could shoot it down over the water and retrieve it out of the water? Or at least that's the official narrative, right? That they didn't want to shoot it down over the mainland because then it might be damaged when it hit the ground. So, yeah, who knows? I don't. Yeah, I don't know how that would be that much different being submerged in deep water versus that. But I'm sure being out floating around in the atmosphere, it's got to be at least a little bit waterproof. But at the same time, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's submersible to 200 meters, or just picking a random number. But however deep that may be. But a couple other things, guy, just keep on the radar. In the last week or so, the Central Bank of Lebanon has announced that it will further devalue its currency by 90%, and that was started on February the 1st. And so the new official exchange rate of 15,000 pounds per US dollar was previously 1,500 Lebanese pounds to US dollar. So the perceived value of Lebanese fiat is basically vanished overnight. And so, don't think that that couldn't happen here in at least some way, right? Um, it's definitely one of those things that no one wants to experience, and it's going to make life hard for everyone that's living there. But here in the good old US of A, our central bank has basically been doing the same thing, but in a more roundabout way, right? With the printing presses printing off the you know Federal Reserve notes, right? It's devaluing our currency too. So yeah, I guess maybe one possible little upside to that is that um, sorry, checking off the things that I've already talked about off my list. Sorry about that. But it'll be easier to pay off your debts. If you wanted to, right? So something to keep in mind. Hey there, Andrew says, howdy. Well, hey there, howdy back. Thanks for joining me tonight. I appreciate it. Can you hear me all right, by the way? So, in other news that happened in this last week that I thought was poignant and worth talking about was the FBI slash Russia scandal just keeps getting deeper and deeper, and um, it just reminds me of a lot of the stuff that is going on right now. That we're just in a situation where the whole structure around us is rotten to the core, in my opinion. And so a lot of these issues, a lot of these things are going to need to be, at some point or another, they are going to need to be completely redone, stripped down to basically nothing. And here, let me turn that down so that doesn't happen again. Sorry about that. Um, yeah. So like the FBI, basically get it and then hire law enforcement officers, who are good law enforcement officers, honorable men and women with integrity, you know, out of the states, and then, put them back working. That's my answer anyways. Put them in those roles and let them do the job, and just get rid of the most of the people that are in the FBI. In my opinion, it's rotten to the core. And that doesn't mean, guys, that every FBI officer is bad or anything like that. And you might even be able to make a case for saving some of the guys. Like when I was in law enforcement, there was an FBI officer that was stationed or assigned to the general area, the county and area that I lived in. He was a good guy, and he would back you up in a heartbeat, be there for you. Just a solid guy, honorable man. And so people like him, yeah, I think you could definitely make a case for keeping them, but a lot of them, no. There's too much water under the bridge, and we need to just start over, fire everybody, and make everybody interview. So that's kind of my answer. Go back and get rid of a lot of these guys, hire men and women of integrity out of the local states. And if some of the, because obviously not everyone in the FBI is a dishonorable person, but certainly at the upper echelons of it, they were very dishonorable and, just flat out lying and colluding with the enemy. So it's not a good situation. And it's definitely not something that's going to just take care of itself. And the best analogy that I can give you is when I had my first back surgery. It was around 1990, 1989, something like that. I don't know. My mind just doesn't work that way, guys. I don't keep track of dates and times and stuff like that. But anyways, going through that process, I ended up at Brooke Army Medical Center down in San Antonio, Texas, Fort Sam Houston. And, that was a halfway decent experience being there and everything. But one thing that happened also is the burn unit was there. And in a burn unit, when people get severely burned, there's a process that they have to go through called debriding. And it's extremely painful for the person who got burnt. And, it's a situation that, you wouldn't wish on anybody. And while the process is extremely painful, it's a situation that has to be done. And basically, you're taking something that might be like the equivalent of one of those SOS scrub pads, and you're scrubbing off all of the dead and decayed skin off of the wound. And obviously, it hurts like a bun of a sitch when that's happening. And, cleaning out a lot of these federal government agencies is going to be a lot like that. It's going to be a painful process for us as a country to go through. But in my opinion, it's definitely something that needs to happen and needs to be done. All right. Andrew says, well, and who got to decide who to keep and who to fire? Probably someone just as corrupt with just as much bias. Clean slate prevents it. Yeah. I definitely agree to that to a certain extent. That's a good comment. And the reason why that I think that it's a good comment is because not everyone deserves to be retained, obviously. Not everyone deserves to be rehired. However, there's guys who are like sergeants or captains or and different things like that in some of these different areas who have leadership experience, and that are men and women of integrity that could be hired first, so that they're the ones that are doing the hiring and different things like that. And so that would be my suggestion. Obviously, that's not something written in stone or whatever, and there would be an awful lot that would need to be fleshed out, so to speak, on that front, and how all of that works. But to finish the thought on there, I don't know if you guys saw this or not, but Charles McGonigal, I don't know if I typed that out right. Anyways, he is 54-year-old high-level FBI person, one of the leaders at the time. He was the lead investigator against Trump, along with Peter Strzok and his little girlfriend that he had that was also an FBI agent. And I can't remember her name off the top of my head. But anyways, sorry, my bride just got off work and she's coming in and the kids are saying hi and everything. So hopefully it won't be too much of a distraction for you guys. But anyways, this guy, McGonigal, got $225,000 at acting as a foreign intelligence agent or a double agent or whatever you want to call that. And so not all the details have come out about this yet, but obviously there would also be a situation. Let's see, how would I put this? There would also be a situation there to where treason, possibly, right? Especially if you were colluding with a foreign government and sharing secrets and different things like that. And I just, in my opinion, I honestly don't think that some of these guys have really stopped to consider the consequences of what they're doing, because the penalty for treason is death by firing squad. So that's just what the law is. And also something to keep in mind to consider is that for treason and things like that, you're not tried through the regular court system. You're tried through the military magistrate system. And it's a situation that is very, very different than the regular court system. And I think a lot of people would agree that our regular court system is corrupt, probably beyond repair as well. And so if and when these people are ever held accountable, fully accountable for the things that they've done, they're probably going to be tried in a military tribunal under military law for treason. So, but anyways, if you weren't familiar who McGonigal was, he actually worked with Christopher Steele, who created the infamous Steele dossier, which was a lie from the beginning, and just a bunch of crap, right? They knowingly lied to the American people. They knowingly lied to the FISA judge, and just not a good situation all around. As a matter of fact, one of the FBI lawyers who actually submitted the paperwork on that has already been adjudicated and found guilty. So they knowingly lied about that whole thing. At the upper echelons of the FBI, without a doubt, it's a fact. They knew that the whole Steele dossier was a lie. And this gets back to what we were talking about last week, using the rules for radicals type thing. You accuse your enemy of what you yourself are doing. So they were the ones that was actually doing this, and they were accusing Trump of doing it. And, obviously not a good situation. And as the old saying goes, heads need to roll. People have to be held accountable to this, because we definitely have a ton of corruption in the federal government right now at all levels, and probably at some state and county and city levels as well, certainly in the bigger cities. Um, if for no other reason than, they're just working with much bigger budgets, much more money. And, with more money comes more corruption, unfortunately. All right. And kind of finish the thought about McGonagall and the FBI is the article that I read had no connection to Steele, Struck, or anyone else, right? They're making it sound like that this had nothing to do with the false accusations against Trump. That this is a completely separate thing, oh, our FBI in action, and they busted this guy. No, this was the lying douchebag from the beginning that just was flat out lying about this, and he was the one that was actually guilty of colluding with the Russians. And it just shows you, in my opinion, it just shows you press is on top of that. Because this, in my opinion, this is a major part of this story, that this McGonagall and Steele and Struck were all working together to frame Trump on this. And so they definitely need to be held accountable for that. All right. If you have a question, go ahead and post it in there. I see Andrew's already asked a question, but if anybody else has a question, feel free. All right. Let's see here. The next thing I want to talk about was a gentleman by the name of Ryan Olohan. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly or not. Olohan. Was recently fired by Google, and he was fired for not being inclusive enough. And so I got a good, and not that it's funny, haha, right? Because this is, a man that seems to be an honorable man anyways. He ran an ice cream shop where the proceeds went to Down syndrome kids, and he also employed many Down syndrome folks. He has 7 half Asian kids. His wife is full-blooded Asian. And like I said, he was fired for not being inclusive enough. And one of the things that his boss specifically wrote him up for was he was showing favoritism towards high producing employees. Oh my gosh, how ridiculous. It gets back to that same old what the modern day libbies or liberals or whatever you want to call them. And guys, I understand, I know clearly that old school liberalism is not what modern day liberals are. So, I'm trying not to say certain things, but still communicate effectively. But, so what they're doing here is they're trying to guarantee outcome rather than guarantee opportunity. And, there's been so many studies and experiments and different things like that have showed that if everyone is guaranteed the same outcome, there's no creativity. There's nothing driving people to do better. There's nothing driving people to excel. And, this is just one of the basic tenets of true capitalism is that you reward those who produce the best. And, he's rightfully, in my opinion, rewarding his employees who are high producing, giving them raises and paying them more money rather than the people who just showed up. So obviously that's ridiculous. And then also, along with that same thing about high producing, his boss also went on to say um, that he was an ableist, right? Meaning that he was promoting those who hustled and moved quickly. Again, high producing, right? If you're busting your butt and you're getting more work done, and you know, it, I to me though, this just seems like straight hogwash, because if this guy has enough patience and enough love for Down syndrome people, to be working with them, and then on top of that, to be hiring them and putting them to work in his ice cream shop. He obviously understands that not everybody can, in my opinion, he obviously understands that not everyone can produce at the same level. And so, for me, anyways, that certainly smacks of pure hogwash. All right, let's see here. Palmetto Paratrooper says, "What motivation would you have to bust your ass if everyone gets the same outcome no matter what?" Yep, absolutely. I absolutely agree with that, and that is just part of the lie of this wokeism country that we are currently living in, and world that we are living in now. I understand clearly, in my opinion, I think that pendulum is going to swing back here very shortly, within the next, in my opinion, probably within the next year or two. And these excuse me, these crazy shout you down liberals, they're not going to be able to, in my opinion, they're not going to be able to safely walk down the street anymore, because people are just fed up and they've had enough of this crap. And also, understanding clearly, I am not calling for that, number one. And number two, um, I wouldn't be happy if that happened. Is my opinion, as I think that's the natural consequences of their actions. And their chickens are going to come home to roost, and they're not going to like it, because um, there's a reason why in all throughout history, they had things like pitchfork rebellions and different things like that, where the masses finally had enough, and went after those who were in charge, and those who were enforcing these things on them that they wanted no part in, understandably. So it's definitely something to think about and to keep in mind moving forward. Let's see here. Let me get caught up on my notes. So another issue and another double standard that I saw in the news was also in this story. So this guy, Mr. Olahan, or however he pronounces his name. And Ryan, if you happen to be listening ever at some point, sorry, I did the best I could. I've never seen an interview or heard you say your name to know how to properly say it. But anyways, he filed a HR claim against a female coworker, and it was only after that he started having issues. Basically, he won what would, in my opinion, would be the equivalency of Employee of the Year of all of Google for many years. Never had any problems. No one ever complained about him until a female coworker hit on him and touched him inappropriately on his abdomen, his stomach area, and he filed a complaint against that. And again, the double standard, right? If a man would have done that, he probably would have been immediately fired and or suspended, and his reputation trashed, the whole nine yards. But because he's a man, and the perpetrator in this instance was a woman, nothing ever happened. And not only that, but then the gal who inappropriately touched him and told him that he had I think as the article I read said that the um, supposed perpetrator told him he had a nice body as she touched him. And so, yeah, guys, you damn well know that if the roles on this were reversed, that he would be guilty until proven innocent. And not only is she innocent until proven guilty, they basically refuse to thoroughly investigate it and to spend any time or energy investigating it. And she actually started making counter accusations against him, saying that he was making microaggressions. And if you guys don't know what microaggressions are, they're little tiny things, right? So hence micro and then aggression, right? Like, you're paying someone a left-handed compliment, so to speak, stuff like that. Saying things that intentionally saying things that could be taken the wrong way, probably are said the wrong way, but you have plausible deniability from them. So, but anyways, nothing ever happened to the gal, but that was also part of the reason why he was fired, because they accused him of making a false accusation. And so, yeah, even if you're in, woke corporate America, you don't get a free ride. You don't get a free pass. All right, let's see here. Palmetto Perchper says, I got my pitchfork ready. Let me know when the townsfolk light the torches. Yes. Yeah. All right. And let's see here. Andrew says, sounds like the same way Twitter had their business hierarchy set up. Yeah. Yeah. And they really did. And it's still not right. I think last week I talked about it a little bit anyways, in saying that the in my opinion, the way the coding for the website itself for Twitter, the algorithms and stuff, the AI that trolls through the accounts and reads everything and picks up on keywords and all of that. People are still getting banned that shouldn't be, and different things like that. As a matter of fact, I think Elon Musk acknowledged that. I think it was either today or yesterday. He made a tweet basically stating that from I don't want to quote him because I don't remember it that well, but basically what he said, from this point going forward, that we will, or Twitter, Twitter will respect all cultures and all ways of thinking. So, something similar to that, instead of Twitter trying to force its belief system on other people and other cultures. So, in my opinion, that's at least good lip service to that. And so far, anyways, it looks like that he has been a man of his word, and he's at least attempting to do that, right? But like I said, in my opinion, I think that first of all, how many back doors are there into this whole thing and stuff like that? Where someone in the dark, in the basement, right? Somewhere is actually controlling a lot of this stuff and making it sound a certain way or seem a certain way, different things like that. All right, let's see here. And then, sorry about that. And then, like, I hit the mic accidentally. But so basically, this dude went from being employee of the year, more or less. There's some fancy title that they gave it, but in my opinion, that's basically what it is. He went from being employee of the year for many years running to getting fired because he was an ableist and he wasn't inclusive enough, and he was in my opinion, rightfully rewarding his employees who were the most productive and who actually got things done. So, all right, let's see here. Palmetto Paratrooper says nowadays all the conservative champions aren't even conservative by 1990 standards. Yeah, yeah. But a lot has changed since that time as well. The Democrats were actually the folks who were in charge when the new crime bill came out. And there was at that time, if I'm remembering correctly, and I think that I am, and if not, I'll note it below once the live stream is posted to my channel. But and Biden was actually one of the main, when he was a senator at that time, he was one of the main people, along with Hillary Clinton and several others. They're going to get tough on crime and all of that, and they came up with the idea of the habitual criminal rule, which, if I'm remembering correctly, is basically if you get 3 felony convictions in 10 years, they automatically they charge you with habitual criminal penalty, and you get another 10 years on top of any sentence that you already had. So, but as the old saying goes, hindsight's 2020, right? And so, it's kind of one of those situations where, at the time, I probably wasn't as involved in keeping up and tracking politics as I am now. But at the time, I probably thought, anyways, that, that's probably a pretty good deal to, hold people more accountable for the crimes that they committed and everything. But now looking back on it, I'm probably not quite so sure on that, because that just gave rise to the whole, let's see, what would I call it? The prison industrial complex and privatizing prisons for big business. And, that was a way to put more people into prison for a longer period of time as well. So just for me personally, I'm not so sure that was such a great idea. All right. Palmetto Paratrooper says, where can I get Ron Paul a Ross Perot ticket? Yeah. I actually like both of those guys, Ron Paul, and I think that Ross Perot was probably, in my opinion, right about a lot of his opinions on things or whatever. But it just, in my opinion, he just wasn't a good candidate. He wasn't very charismatic, and he wanted to use charts and graphs and stuff like that. And I don't know. I just don't think that even though, in my opinion, even though he had good ideas, he did not have a good platform that to run off and how he did things. And that's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it. All right. And then one of the last things, and then we'll go ahead and wrap up for the night, unless you guys have stuff that you want to talk about. This isn't our regular Sunday night. This is more of a makeup session. So I don't know if you guys saw this or not, but AT&T, who owns DirecTV, they recently canceled Newsmax off of their platform, even though Newsmax nowadays is the number 4 news channel in all of the bigger mainline news sources that are out there. And they use some silly, oh, it was just a cost-cutting measure, this and that. If they really wanted to cut costs, get rid of CNN, right? As I'm sure it costs a whole lot more money, or at least it did in the past. It costs a whole lot more money to have CNN on their network versus having Newsmax on there, because it's still a growing service. It doesn't have the the pedigree, so to speak, that CNN once had. I think nowadays, they're pretty much a joke, and everyone knows that. Um, it was in the news just in the last couple of weeks that CNN actually has shut down some or most of the floors of some big high rise that they either rent or own or use anyways in some major city like New York or something like that, as they're just laying off people left and right. Pedigree. Yeah. Palmetto Paratrooper says pedigree is for livestock. Yes, I agree. That is the historical definition of that term. I think nowadays a lot of people use that as kind of a bona fide, from whence someone came, right? Meaning that at one point in time, CNN was a reputable news source, and nowadays they're the laughing stock, in my opinion. But I think a lot of people would agree with me on that and agree with that. But again, that's just my opinion. Excuse me a second. So, anyways, like I said, they were the number 4 news channel. So it's certainly not a situation to where, um, people weren't watching it or whatever. And it's if I remember correctly, and I think that I do, but um, there's definitely a market for people who want to hear, more conservative based news. And that, and when I say that, I'm not talking about left wing extremists, right wing extremists. I'm talking about the probably 80% or so of people that are somewhere on a gradient in the middle, and not all the way out on a tangent on the liberal or conservative side of things. So, all right, let's see here. Looks like King, maybe Cobra 1979 says true. No, thank you. All right. Palmetto Paratrooper, a human being should be able to change a diaper, plan an invasion, butcher a hog, con a ship, design a building, write a sonnet. Okay, yeah. Balance accounts, build a wall, set a bone, comfort the dying, take orders, give orders, cooperate, and act alone, solve equations, analyze a new problem, pitch manure, program a computer, cook a tasty meal, fight effectively, die gallantly. Specialization is for insects. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's a good saying. Thanks for sharing that, Palmetto. Yes, and as the old saying goes, a jack of many trades, master of few. And for those who tend to live more of a country living is a term I like to use a lot nowadays. Just because there's a lot of well truly what's being off grid, and truly what is actually being a homesteader and different things like that. And oh, Grumpy Troll says, "Why am I subscribed to you?" I don't know. Why are you? But to finish the thought, getting back to um, AT&T slash DirecTV, um, the Speaker of the House, McCarthy, said he was concerned about it, and they were going to have talks about it or whatever. So I tried as best I could to follow up on that. I didn't see anything concrete come out of that. But to me, anyways, it kind of smacks of being very disingenuous. This whole thing from AT&T, because they also canceled OAN last year, and that was also, a conservative news outlet. All right, and King says, "Jack of all trades, master of none, is but then a master of one." Yep, yep. The point that I was making on that topic was that people who live in the country, things like that, a lot of times you find yourself in a situation where, by the time you pay for someone to drive out to where you live and pay all the costs and expense and things like that, you're better off just to do it yourself. And so you learn how to do a lot of things that a lot of people would consider to be difficult. um, they end up doing it themselves because of that. And so you learn how to do a lot of different things. You wear a lot of different hats. And it's like, if you talking to a successful old school farmer or rancher, they do a little bit of everything. They know how to care for animals, they know how to weld, they know how to mechanic, they know how, a lot of things, because they had to learn how to do it. So, all right, Palmetto Paratrooper says, "Don't let perfect be the enemy of good enough." Yeah, yeah, and that gets back to that age old saying about, um, you know a lot of people are afraid to embark on a task simply because they don't think that they can do it well enough. But if you look at, Grumpy Troll says, "I am that homestead guy." All right. Well, good for you, Grumpy Troll. Thanks for joining us tonight, by the way. Even though you didn't know that you're subscribed to me, thank you for watching. I still appreciate it. And hopefully you'll get some value from the live stream tonight. All right. Again, AT&T was claiming that this was just some cost-cutting measure. There wasn't a political agenda. And let's see here. Palmetto Paratrooper says that's probably why he's grumpy. All right. I wish I had. At some point, I want to get a stream deck so that I can play a rim shot. After someone has a good one-liner like that. And Grumpy Troll says, "That's one of many reasons why I'm grumpy." Well, sorry to hear that you're grumpy, but hey, we all do what we got to do to get through life and make the best out of the situations that we're in, right? There's a saying that goes somewhere along the lines, do the best you can where you are with what you have. And I don't know if somebody else said that first, but I do know that Joe Fox regularly says that. And if you don't know who Pastor Joe Fox is, or Joe Fox, whatever you want to call him, you know, people that don't espouse a faith, have a problem with calling someone pastor. So I'm not suggesting in any way that he's not. I'm just, saying that. But anyways, he wrote a book on preparedness and different things like that, and he's a figure in social media. And so, yeah, do the best you can where you are with what you have. And the whole purpose of talking about Joe Fox is I always try to give credit where credit is due, if it's not my original thought. So, all right. Let's see here. Grumpy Troll says, yeah, he knows Joe Fox. Yep. A lot of people who are or have been around, the homesteading / preparedness type mindset of people here in the Ozarks, at least know who he is, if not, having personally met him at some point in time. And Grumpy goes on to say he actually lives not far from me. All right. Well, cool. All right. So to kind of finish up the thought on the whole AT&T thing is, so in the last 2 years, they canceled both of their conservative news sources. So, it's, yeah, plausible deniability, right? Oh, no, the economy's bad. This is a cost cutting measure or whatever. And then I think they actually came out recently and said something along the lines that what they were going to do was they're going to promote a new conservative news station. And I don't remember the name of it. They listed it. I had never heard of it. That doesn't mean it's not good or whatever. But also, having said that, I mean, let's be honest here, right? In the last 2 years, they canceled both of the conservative news networks that they had on there. And now they're going to bring on this one where they have a say in it. It's like, yeah, no, I'm not lining up to watch that network. That does, for me personally, it definitely doesn't sound like anything that I would be interested in. All right, let's see here. Grumpy Troll says, "Are you in the Ozarks, Fletch?" Yes, I am. Yes, I am. We've lived here for going on, I think, 7 years now. Been on YouTube for about 11, off and on, and I've gone through long periods of time, several years where I didn't make content. But yep, I do live in the Ozarks as well. All right, Pell Metal Paratrooper says, "I haven't had network TV since 2013. Yeah, I don't know how far back. Let's see, it's 2020. Yeah, it was probably sometime around that time we got rid of our network TV as well. We haven't had it for, I don't know. Like I said, terrible dates and times. My mind just doesn't work that way, but it's been a long time, probably 10 years or more since we've had network TV. Probably close, in my estimation, probably closer to 15 years since we've had regular network TV. And that doesn't mean that we don't occasionally watch things. Like I said, we have Amazon Prime Video and, some other sources like that we very, very selectively watch. But, we do have those. And like I opened with talking about that new shotgun wedding movie of J-Lo's, it's just like, and that's why we don't have regular programming brought into our house, because that's what it is. It's programming. So, but to finish the thought about AT&T, they don't really want to have an open discourse. They want to have a one-way discourse, right? Which is where they're talking and you're listening. And they don't want a conflicting point of view getting out there. And while we're talking about it, it reminds me, I don't know if I talked to you guys about, that's another thing I wanted to talk about real quick. Some other channels that I regularly watch. One of them is called Papa Pepper, and I'll put that in the comments. So it's kind of an interesting name. But I've met these folks. They're good people. They got a great channel with lots of good content, especially for kids. He goes out and catches spiders and snakes and all kinds of stuff like that. And it is a family-friendly channel. And then another one that I like to watch is Patrick Bet David over at Valuetainment. And let's see here. Let me put this up. I'll put that in there so people can see it. That's the name of the channel, guys. Papa Pepper. So, all right. Grumpy Troll says, "I'm near a town called Ava, south of Branson. I run a business that sells raw materials for making soap and other personal care items." Oh, cool. Yeah, I know where Ava is, or Ava. And Palmetto Paratrooper says, "We've never met, though. I don't know why." Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of see what word would I use to describe faith-based people. Is no matter what term you use, someone's not going to agree with it, right? And so I try to just leave it as vanilla as possible for that very reason, right? It's like, as they'll, well, see, how would I say this? Even though many of us have a very overt, in your face resistance to a lot of this woke stuff, you can't help but live in this environment and not have it affect you at least a little bit, right? It's just like the Israelites after they got out of Egypt and they're wandering in the wilderness, right? And their flesh is crying out because they wanted to go back to Egypt because that's all they knew, right? Many of them were born there, and that's all they knew, being a slave there. And so I think um, a lot of people, even in today's day and age, tend to fall into that same trap. That you know, in my opinion, it kind of gets to what I like to call the offended Olympics, right? Who can get offended the easiest over the most stupidest thing? It's like I'm sure you guys know people like this, that are into the one-upsmanship, right? No matter what you say, no matter how unique the story that you share, they can always one up you, right? They've got a similar story, but it's somehow one upped. So, all right, let's see here. Paul Metal Paratrooper says, "Did you see the 3D rendering of what they think Moses looked like? It's a freaking Hulk Hogan." Okay, no, I didn't see that. I wasn't aware of that. So, if you have like a link or something to share for that, Palmetto, feel free to go ahead and do that. That would be interesting. But yeah, it's definitely um, yeah. for for lack of a better term, when we first started realizing that we should probably, oh gosh, how would I say this? Know and understand the Old Testament a lot better, and know and understand what parts of that are still relevant for today. Um, I originally had the thought going back, all the way back to that time, like, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, that, if the people who think and believe that way continue to do so, that eventually you will end up in the same type of situation where, like, in the, for lack of a better term, the Protestant faith, that espouses a faith in the Messiah, that it will become just as fragmented and separated as what you have, like, in, I think, what a lot of people just kind of generally call Protestantism. There's, like, I don't know, last, I don't remember anymore. It was a lot, like maybe 2,000 different denominations of Protestantism out there. And, in my opinion, that has certainly been my experience since, coming to this understanding, shall we say, about the Old Testament. And so, it's just one of those things, right? Where we'll just have to kind of wait and see how it all pans out, so to speak, and what does and doesn't happen. And I think a lot of people, again, just in my opinion, I think a lot of people lose track of the fact that we're all sinful human beings and we all make mistakes and none of us are perfect. And you know being a human being living in the society that we live in nowadays, just from doing that, we tend to put people on a pedestal. And then when that person falls off the pedestal, yeah, it ends up being a lot nastier and a lot longer time of healing needed because of that, because they have been put on a pedestal. All right, let's see here. Palmetto Paratrooper says Torah observant people separate themselves as much as any other group of people do. I think most of it has to do with pride. That could very well be. That could very well be. And, in my opinion, it gets kind of back to, I don't remember where it was at, but the apostles are talking to Messiah and they're saying, hey, these guys over here, they're preaching and teaching and they're healing people, but they're not associated with us. We need to go shut them down. And Messiah was like, no, just because they're not us doesn't mean that they're evil or bad. And, I think quite possibly, Palmetto, that kind of parlays with that. And, it's just one of those issues. All right, Grumpy Troll says, I study the Bible, but I don't let it determine who I am. Okay. Yeah, and that's one of the nice things about living in a somewhat still free society, right? Is that we all can have our own opinions and we can choose to look at things in a different way. And yeah, and I don't know, something that my grandpa always taught me were things like, if someone has to sacrifice so that you can have your freedom, that's not really freedom because someone else is paying the price for it. And, we all, in my opinion, we all need to look at life that way, right? That if for you to have your perceived freedom, someone else is paying the cost for that's not really freedom because, if it's a good issue, if it's a good policy, it should bring about the most amount of freedom for the most amount of people instead of being, this little caveat, a little corner somewhere. And all right, 10 Tiger says, what about a prideful nation? Yeah, America, in my opinion, the United States of America is a very prideful nation. And I still stand by my opinion that there's nowhere you can go in the world right now and live as freely as you can still here in the US of A, but we definitely have our problems. And, it's one of those things that definitely needs to be addressed at some point in time in one way or another. And Palmetto says, who am I is 100% determined by what I believe the Father expects of me, but what I think he expects doesn't often line up with what other people think he expects. Yeah. And I would also submit to you, Palmetto Paratrooper, that's one of those things. It's just, for lack of a better term, it's a humanism, right? Or a truism, different thing like that, where we as human beings, we tend to project onto other people. We have our filter, we have our way of seeing things, we have our own belief system. And, when it comes to us, we rightfully filter out those things and perceive them as they come in. But the hard thing about being human is not then projecting that out to someone else, right? Like trying to look at someone else and not use the filter that we use on ourselves for them, because we all have a different walk, and we're coming from different places in life and society. And while that's definitely a good thing, right, it can also make things difficult because we are kind of as the old saying goes, a melting pot of a country, where we have lots of different people from lots of different backgrounds and perspectives and whatnot. But that also gets back to the same old thing, in my opinion, about the point of political correctness was to get people to stop talking about these things. And, literally, a lot of these, woke AF, Alpha Foxtrot, woke AF people. Yeah, it's just, they literally have, in my opinion, they literally have this way of seeing things and thinking about things that, well, basically what it comes down to is anything you say that hurts somebody's feelings, you're wrong. And that's the easiest way to describe it. But of course, the problem, the issue with that is then, well, now you have the offended Olympics, right? Where, that's someone's trump card, right? Anytime you get in an argument with somebody and they want to win the argument, all they got to do is throw down that trump card. You hurt my feelings. I won. Bang. You're wrong because you hurt my feelings. And, a lot of this stuff is just, man, it's whack. And unfortunately, I feel bad for my younger children and my grandchildren, because this is the world that they're going to have to grow up in, at least for a little while. Hopefully over the next couple of years, some of this stuff will get rectified and straightened out. But at the same time, I'm not holding my breath. I would love to see that. And, as the old saying goes, I'm doing my part, right? I'm doing the best I can. I've been telling people a lot of the stuff that was going to happen going back 11 years. And, you can go back and look at my very first videos talking about a lot of this stuff about political correctness and all that. And you guys, what it ends up being is what the founding fathers called the tyranny of the minority. When you have a very vocal, very loud minority of people that are enforcing their will on a society, that becomes the tyranny of the minority. And understand clearly, I did not say, nor was I implying, the tyranny of minorities. I did not say that. I said, according to the founding fathers, that is what they called the tyranny of the minority, meaning people who are not the majority, the people who have some, whack, 10% extreme left or whack 10% extreme right. And, they're just very loud and very vocal. And to give you an idea of what I'm talking about, guys, and how that would make sense in today's society, I don't know if you guys are familiar with kind of a homesteading channel, Pure Living for Life. They've recently done some videos. They were one of the first really big homesteading channels on YouTube. And in the last month or so, they have done several videos talking about the bullying and things like that they've had. And one of the things that they talked about is how that there's automation software that's out there that can make one person look like they're 100. And so basically what they would do is they would come on your video and they would make one comment on there. And then later they would come back and so it gets through the filter. So the comment gets posted. Then after the comment's posted, then they come in and, hit you with a deluge of, 50 or 100 responses to, some distasteful thing comment that they're making. And it looks like, well, holy cow, 100 people agree with this person. No, it's one whack job that's doing it in mom's basement somewhere. And, they're making themselves look like, that there's hundreds of other people that agree with them, when that's not at all the case. And that's just another example of what the tyranny of the minority is. And in my opinion, I think we're seeing a lot of this too in corporate America. I don't know how a person would go about investigating this, or proving it or disproving it, but that if there's whack job people like that out there that are doing this, just because you dislike some content creator on YouTube to make their life miserable, that there's people out there that are using that exact same software to make government officials, elected politicians, whether it's at the city, county, state, or federal level, making it look like, that their opinion on something is much more amplified than what it actually is, right? Because you can have one person appearing as 100, right? Because part of the way these automation softwares work is they create user accounts. Well, for each user account, you most likely need a unique email address. So then you could use that same strategy, right, to start sending letters to a senator, or your national level representative, and making it look like it's 100 people that believe or think the same way you do, if not 1,000, right? And so, in my opinion, that's why it's more important nowadays than ever before to make sure that we're as vocal as we can be, in that we're not being belligerent, shout you down people, but at the same time, when people say things that simply aren't true, or that, okay, you're quoting one source that says what you believe, but here's another source that says the exact opposite, right? It's just like how in a court of law, you can have two experts, say something completely different than each other, and they can both back up their opinion with some facts anyways. And we need to get rid of the political correctness and get back to people having a civil discourse. And to kind of finish up that thought, we were talking about this earlier with Patrick Bet David at Valuetainment, and they've got a big channel now. They didn't start out that way. I mean, they started out with basically nothing, and I think they have over 1 million subscribers to their channel now, or something like that. And anyways, he was having a debate. I think it was supposed to be an interview, but it ended up being like a debate, and it was terrible to watch, because the gentleman that he was interviewing was a black gentleman, and Patrick Bet David is Iranian and Syrian. His parents come from different backgrounds. And the guy he was interviewing, his first name was Roland. I don't remember his last name, but every time that Patrick opened his mouth and started talking, he would talk over him and try to hit him off, no matter what point he was trying to make, or what he was trying to say. And the whole conversation was like that, and it was painful to watch. In my opinion, the stereotypical shout you down, crazy ass Libby, right? And they're so afraid of someone sharing a point that doesn't agree with theirs, they're going to silence you any way that they can, because the only message they want to get out there is their message. And so if that means to shout you down, then that's what they're going to do. But in my opinion, if you want to watch someone, put on a master class of dealing with, the stereotypical shout you down Libby, go watch that. And yeah, it was cringeworthy. I actually kind of hate that word, cringeworthy, because it's so overplayed, so overused. But this really truly was. It's like those Roland guy, whoever he is, he said I remember him saying in the debate, he has his own channel or something like that. But yeah, it was, and he was trying to play the victim mentality card, and yeah, Patrick wasn't buying it, man. He just flat out told him a couple of times, it's like, look, you're talking to the wrong guy here. I came to this country with nothing, and you know, the guy's a multimillionaire now. He sold his one of his companies, I think, for $400 million or something like. It's a lot of money. However much it was a lot of money, and the guy's like loaded now, but started out with nothing. And all right, let's get current on our comments. All right, Palmetto Paratrooper. We shouldn't worry about someone else's splinter in their eye when we have a beam sticking out of ours. That doesn't mean we won't do it anyway. Yeah, that's true. All right, when you're a wimp, everyone seems like a bully. Yeah, there's a lot of truth to that. And also, I think that Jordan Peterson in his book, The 12 Rules for Success, and just in a lot of his talks and different things, he talks about how that in order to be a truly masculine man, you have to have the ability to be dangerous. And what makes a man a good man is that you're able to control that. But at a moment's notice, as the old saying goes, the animal can be released, right? And if need be, you can rip off heads and poop down throats, right? But 99.9% of the time, you're not going to do that. And that's not who you are, but you can do that, because otherwise you're just a wimp, and everyone knows that you're just a wimp, and you're not going to be able to protect yourself. You're not going to be able to protect your family, your children, your wife. Yeah, it's not a good thing. All right, Palmetto Trooper says they've been going through some crazy stuff. Mm-hmm. All right, Grumpy Troll says, I live near and have met Living Traditions YouTube channel. Oh, cool. All right. Yeah, I'm familiar with them. But they're not someone that I watch a whole lot, but I've definitely watched a whole bunch of their videos over the years. All right, Grumpy Troll says 10 billion. Okay. Palmetto Trooper. Unfortunately, it's not even difficult to do. Mm-hmm. Hey, 10 Tigers, welcome. It doesn't help that the mainstream media is pushing the vocal minority as if they were the majority. Yep. And that gets right back to what we were talking about. And in my opinion, that also gets back to there's two types of lies, right? Or at least two. You have lies of commission and lies of omission, right? Commission is you're knowingly saying the wrong thing and you know it's a lie, but it suits your purpose to get what you want, so you're going to do it anyways. And the other is you're talking about a subject and you know that something is germane to the discussion, and if people knew that fact, it would change their opinion. So you intentionally won't even address that. You won't even bring it up. You won't even tell people that that's an option. And so, yeah, that's a huge issue. All right, Palmetto Paratrooper says, PBD, who is Patrick Bet David, has way more patience with his guests than he should have. I thought that earlier today too, Palmetto, but the more I thought about it, I kind of, just for me personally, I kind of changed my opinion on that, because even though both of those men here in the US of A would be considered quote unquote minorities, right? Because it's Patrick's show, and I would assume he probably has more money than this Roland guy. Although if he has his own syndicated show and everything, I don't think he's probably living off welfare, if you know what I'm saying. And I think that in the long run, it suits him better to just remain calm. And then know, let these people fly off the handle like they're doing, because I read through the comment section for several minutes, and the comments that caught my eye, and I read all the replies and everything, and I would say that probably 9 out of 10 comments were people were talking about how unhinged this Roland guy was, and how he was so delusional and thinking that just because he got emotional and raised his voice makes him right, and it simply doesn't. And as a matter of fact, at one point in time, Patrick actually told him that he's like, "Hey, Roland, raising your voice doesn't make you right." And of course, it was water off a duck's back. And uh, if it were me, I don't think that I could have sat through that. At least where I'm at right now, with the tools I have right now, the knowledge that I'm equipped with right now today, I don't think I could do that. As a matter of fact, I think that's one of the things that I said when I was telling you guys, I was thinking about having guests come on, interviewing them, is, I would never have someone like that on, because all they want to do is shout you down, so that the only message, the only voice that gets across is theirs, because they're drowning you out, they're cutting you off every opportunity that they have. And when that's the case, it's because you're afraid people are going to hear what you have to say, and so they're going to silence you. And it's, in my opinion, that's kind of like one of those rules of debate, right? It's like, well, there's another old saying, because one of the surest ways of admitting defeat in a debate is when the personal attacks start. And you're not debating the issues, right? Now you're making it personal, and you're trying to cut that person down and make it personal. All right, Grumpy Troll says, I made a multi-million-dollar business starting with $500. I'm not quite to selling my business for 400 million, but maybe one day. Well, awesome. Congratulations. That's really cool, Grumpy Troll. And, in my opinion, it gets back to the same thing we were talking about before. This is still one of the freest countries that you can live in the world right now, today. It doesn't mean it can't change, be different at some other point in time. But in my opinion, I really don't think there's anywhere else that you can go in the world right now and live as freely as you still can here in the US of A. And that by no stretch of the imagination am I saying that the USA is perfect and there aren't things that we need to fix immediately and different things like that. But even with all its flaws, it still is what it is. All right, Tin Tiger says, give them all rope they need and let them run with it. Yep, you get to see what type of person they really are in the end. Yeah, and that gets back to the old saying, you give someone enough rope to hang themselves, right? Especially people like that. In my opinion, people like this Roland character that was on there, they like hearing their own voice. And, if you let them talk long enough, they're probably going to say something that is going to, in one way or another, discredit themselves, unfortunately. And all right, Palmetto Paratrooper says, I never made a multi-million-dollar business, but I've deleted bad people and created good people, so I'm satisfied. Yeah, and that's important. Excuse me a second. We all have to be able to go through that process of deleting people in our lives that what's the word I want to use here? Yeah, I definitely don't want to sound cold or uncaring or anything like that, because that's definitely not where my heart is, and that's definitely not what I think. But at the end of the day, there are people out there, and we all have them, that the Debbie Downer, right? That type of thing, or the dude that can't stop bitching and moaning about every single little thing. Toxic. Yeah. Thank you, 10 Tigers. Toxic. We all have had those toxic people in our lives at some point or another. And, unfortunately, there just really needs to come a place and a time when we can say enough's enough, and if that person really isn't bringing any value to, and I'm paraphrasing very loosely, but basically what the Apostle Paul said in one of his epistles was that if you bring no value to my life, why the hell do I care what your opinion of me is? And I think that's exceptional advice for anybody, right? That the people that you have in your life aren't bringing value to you, why are you allowing them to still be part of your life? And not only that, but if they're toxic and they bring you down when you're around them, then why do you keep them in your life? Because not only are they not adding any value to your life, but they're also bringing you down. And there's lots of very wise people over the years have made comments like that basically the value of a person to some degree or another, and that whole how much is debatable, but in my opinion, I don't think it's debatable that if you hang around with a bunch of negative, crappy, toxic people, you can't help but become one of them over time. And we see this a lot with like doctors and nurses and police officers and firefighters and stuff like that too, because a lot of their day is spent dealing with for lack of a better term some of the dregs of society, and it affects you. You become jaded, and it's one of those situations. It just is what it is, and there's not a whole lot that person can do about that in a lot of ways, because you still have to be polite and caring with these people who may or may not be treating you reciprocally in that capacity, but you still have a job to do and it still has to get done. All right. Palmetto says, I meant more along the lines of killing terrorists and raising children, but that works too. Okay, fair enough. All right. And King says, because people don't like change and comfortable with the status quo of the person. Yeah. There's definitely something to be said for that. And the whole thing about change, in my opinion, is the reason why people don't like change is because change invites the unknown. And next to public speaking, the unknown is what most human beings fear the most. It's public speaking and fear of the unknown. And change invites or ushers in the unknown. And so a lot of people are afraid of that, and they don't want to deal with it. They don't want to welcome it. And, it's just one of those things where at the end of the day, right, gets back to that old saying, do the best you can where you are with what you have. And, I don't know that there really is a whole lot more than that, right? And, it doesn't mean you shouldn't strive, right? It's just, the old saying, shoot for the moon, because even if you miss it, you'll still land among the stars, different things like that, right? That, we all need to be trying to be better human beings every day, and everything that goes along with that. And, it reminds me of another saying that, just in my opinion, I don't think that a lot of people probably fully understand or grasp, but if you're praying to the Father and you're asking for strength, the only way you get strength is through trials. And so when you're praying for strength and the Father answers your prayers, well, it's trials, because that's how humans get stronger. You have to actually experience something in order for that to mean something. And that gets right back to the a man a man that you should be fearful of, right? That's a man that, as I said earlier, has the capacity to, they could rip off your head and poop down your throat. They're not going to do it, but they could. And, if you don't have the capacity to do that, then, there's really nothing quote unquote good or better about you than, the virtuous wimp, right? Because, them not doing that, isn't really a good thing. They don't even have the capability of doing that. And it kind of gets back to that same thing too. A lot of times we as men and ladies, I'm not intentionally leaving you out, but 98% of the people that subscribe to my channel and watch my videos are men. So yes, my content is and does tend to be more structured towards men. But anyways, that's why we as men, we value our relationships with men of integrity, men who have gone through things, men who have survived harsh and difficult times. And it's rightly so, because they've been tested, and they survived it. They came out the other end stronger than what they were before they went into it. And the only way that you get stronger is to face tests and to face struggles. And in my opinion, that also gets back to, maybe a little bit of my soapbox, but that's fine. It's my show. But it gets back to that thing, I think a lot of times now, especially in modern times, that a lot of parenting nowadays, people don't want to allow their children to struggle. They don't want, they want to spoon feed their adult children. They're still spoon feeding them and giving them everything instead of making them struggle, instead of making them work for things, because they need to understand struggle. They need to understand, perseverance and pushing through something and finishing things, seeing it out all the way to the end. All right. Palmetto says, change is good when you're prepared for it. Yeah. I think that you probably gain more strength. It's just in my opinion. I think you probably gain more strength from it in the end when you're not prepared for it. But yeah. Being dangerous yet calm garners immense amounts of respect. Correct. I would, me personally, I would certainly agree with that. The guys that I would want in my corner are, guys who have been through stuff, survived things, and came out of it stronger on the other end than someone who has never been tried or tested in any way and been spoon-fed their whole life. That's actually one of the last people that I would want in my corner. As the old saying goes, when the defecation hits the oscillation, that's probably one of the last people that I would choose to have in my corner, someone that's completely untested. And, and because of that, right, you don't know. You don't know what they're going to do because they've never been in that situation before. But someone that's been in that situation, that's different. They have survived it. They stood up to it and come out the other end better for it. Yeah, Grumpy Troll says, I'm a survival troll. Okay. All right. Fair enough. All right, guys. We're coming up on 2 hours, and I've really enjoyed the back and forth. Thank you. It always makes the show better when we have good conversation like we have tonight. And so if there's anything else you guys want to talk about, now would be the time to bring it up. And if not, we're going to start wrapping this up for the week. And let's see, I'll make sure I didn't miss anything. All right, guys. So kind of what I wanted to close with tonight was just to encourage all of you, whether you're listening now on the live stream or on the replay. Um, yeah, it's up to you and me right now to choose to not be quiet. And, that may mean writing an email to your senator or your representative or, whoever, right, is in the power structure or where you're at. So there's that, right? That's one way that you can make sure your voice is heard. Another way is, for me, a lot of times it's, being in the barber shop. And admittedly, I've had some robust conversations in the barbershop at different times because, not being afraid to speak my mind and to um, challenge something that in my opinion, I had facts I could prove that, you know, hey, you may be right about a certain aspect of this, but this is also right. And so if this is also right, you're not 100% right. So, you know, we as a country right now, because this is what the matrix, the system, the Illuminati, whatever you want to call it, whatever that is, what that wants is to divide and conquer, right? Divide us by social economic things, divide us by race, divide us by religion. And then in religion, even get further down, divide us by, different denominations and different beliefs and all of that. And because if we all united, right, it's like, um, I don't know if you guys have seen that movie Ants, and there's these grasshoppers, and they are keeping these ants subservient to them because the grasshoppers are quite a bit bigger than the ants, but there's only just a handful of the grasshoppers. And at one point in the movie, they're in like, this makeshift insect cantina bar or whatever, and they're taking look like seeds or something like that out of a alcohol bottle, and the the leader's name was Hopper, and I don't remember his brother's name, but he has this stupid brother, not very high IQ brother. And he asked him, he's like, well, why do we even care about these stupid ants, and why do you care if that one ant spoke up and said something to you? And Hopper takes out one seed out of the bottle, hits him with it, and says, did that hurt? He says, no. Takes another and throws on him, hits him with it, says, did that hurt? No. And he says, well, what you don't understand, if we allow one of those stupid ants to stand up to us, what happens if all of them do? They outnumber us 1,000 to 1. And, if we allow them to start speaking up and to challenge us, they're going to take us out, and they're going to change our easy way of living, right? Where, we let the ants gather food for us all summer long, so we don't have to. And in the winter, we still have food. And a lot of life is like that right now. And, it's going to take a concerted effort of good people like you and me who are going to start standing up and challenging people when they say things that we can factually should and can disagree with. Because as the old saying goes, there's your side, there's my side, and the truth is somewhere in the middle. All right. Palmetto says, time to go to bed anyways. Shalom, homie. All right. To you as well, sir. Thank you for supporting the broadcast. I greatly appreciate it. Your Patrol says, I wouldn't be where I am if I hadn't been forced to make my own prosperity. I've been to zero many times and have had to reinvent myself to greatness. Oh, cool. Congratulations, Grumpy. That's awesome. All right. Tin Tiger says, any thoughts on King Charles III? No. But what specifically is your question on that, Tin Tigers? King says, I'm going to go ahead and get off of here myself. Have a blessed night. You as well. Thank you very much. All right. Grumpy says 1979 was a good year. That's when I was born. All right. Cool. You're not a spring chicken, but you're not a grumpy old man yet either. All right, 10 Tigers, if you're still on, I see a bunch of people left, which is fine. But if you want to talk about this, I'll be happy to talk to you about it. But I don't understand specifically what your question is about King Charles. And Grumpy says he's working on it diligently. Yeah, good for you. That's awesome that you've been able to create something basically out of nothing. I think you said what, $500. So yeah, that's awesome. Is it good or bad for the world or USA? For me personally, 10 Tigers, honestly, I really don't care. The monarchy, so to speak, other than talking about, the throne of our Heavenly Father, I could really care less. I've never watched, any of the royal weddings or, any of that other crap or interviews with royalty or anything like that. We don't live under a system like that anymore, or at least as far as we know, right? I suppose that a person can make an argument for some of the people standing back in the shadows, doing the marionette strings, whatever, that they're still pulling the strings. 'Cause I know a lot of people think, whatever you want to call it, the Illuminati, the system, the Matrix, whatever it is, that the elites, the World Economic Forum type people, that there's this ancient bloodlines of people, and that goes back into the monarchies too, because they track the bloodline and all that. So I don't know. Just for me personally, it's not something that I spend a lot of time thinking about. I just don't see any value for me personally. I don't see any value in that for me. All right. 10 Tiger says, I think we will miss QE2 as KC3 looks like a real bad apple. Huh. Okay. So I'm assuming that's Queen Elizabeth II and King Charles III. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's going to be real interesting. Speaking of KC3 or King Charles III, when the full travel logs from what's his bucket, the guy that ran the island with all the kids on it and stuff, and supposedly, theoretically, or whatever, invited people there to then trap them or drug them and recorded them doing bad things to underage boys and girls and different things like that, so that they could have leverage on them. Who knows? Is that possible? Heck yeah, it's possible. But the fact of the matter is that we, to this point anyways, we've not yet seen a lot of facts and evidence on that so far. But in my opinion, if that's not proof of how corrupt our judicial system is right now, our judicial system is just becoming a complete and utter joke. That they're able to get away with the things that they are, and there's not any repercussions. And so, we definitely have, in my opinion, a two-tiered legal system right now. It shouldn't be that way, but it is. All right. 10 Tigers says the monarchy may end because of his actions. We will see. Yeah, it very well could. If nothing else, put a very understandably bad taste in people's mouth, and they want nothing to do with them. And in my opinion, I think it also gets back to that same old thing that the time's going to come, when a lot of these people who have done some of these things are going to be held accountable for it one way or another, either by the Heavenly Father at some point, and or the pitchforks are going to come out. And a lot of these people aren't going to be able to safely walk down the street. And again, I'm not calling for that. I'm not saying I want that to happen. But as the old saying goes, history repeats itself. This has to happen. When people have had enough, right? And then on top of that, trying to think of who it was, but some guy that has like kind of a news and commentary show on RT, Russia Today, talks about this regularly, but basically says when people have lost everything, they lose it. Excuse me. I think a lot of people are starting to, unfortunately, get to that point as inflation tries to creep up, or not tries, it does. And it's actually not creeping. It's jumping by leaps and bounds, in my opinion. But yeah, it's becoming more and more of an issue as we go forward. So, all right, guys. Well, we just crossed 2 hours, so I am going to go ahead and jump off of here. But before I do, the last comment of the night was 10 Tigers. Our judicial system was the last hope of the people. Yeah, and unfortunately, we definitely needed to get back to, in my opinion, what the founding fathers intended, and that's things like jury nullification. And if you guys aren't aware of that, just look it up. That was something from the founding fathers, because they'd saw what happened back in Europe. When you said the wrong thing, right? You upset someone because you spoke your mind, and so they would then pass a law, kind of basically saying things like, well, you can't say anything bad about the Roman Catholic Church, and if you do, here's the consequence, that type thing. And so what the founding fathers put into that whole thing was the idea or the concept of jury nullification. So if the jury finds that the law that you're being held to is not or is repugnant to the Constitution, then the jury has the right to say, no, I don't care if you're saying that he broke this law, because this law does not line up with the Constitution. So therefore, we nullify this law, and, sir, madam, you're free to go. And, that, in my opinion, that is one of the ways that we as a country can start to take back our country from radicalized judges and district attorneys and different things like that. All right. Well, we're going to call her a night. Thanks again. Thank you very much for joining the live stream tonight. I do appreciate you, and my family appreciates you. Thank you very much. And if you're watching on replay, thank you very much. I appreciate you watching the replay as well. And as always, until next time, we'll see you then.